So I've just arrived in Marrakesh and I chose to stay in this quarter of the Medina, which is called Ait Ben Haddou, and actually takes the name of one of the 7 saints here in Marrakesh. I decided to stay here because it's a lot more authentic. You can really see like local life here in Marrakesh, and I'm hoping to get that perspective during my time here. This is a place where locals live and work, and I want to discover that local culture and that authentic side of the Medina and of Marrakesh. The Medina is home to thousands of riads, traditional Moroccan homes with multiple stories that centre around an open-air courtyard that contains a fountain. Riads were the stately city homes of the wealthiest citizens, such as merchants and courtiers, who were able to build mansions which included interior gardens. These interior gardens were a popular feature of palace architecture in the Islamic world because water and greenery were associated with images of paradise in Islam. In recent years, there has been growing popularity in using these traditional Moroccan houses as part of Morocco's tourism industry, with many crumbling and ruined riads being bought and converted into hotels, guest houses or restaurants. One of the defining characteristics of a quarter, or a typical quarter here in the Medina, is a fountain, like the one that you see behind me. This one is still functioning, but most of them in the Medina, they don't work anymore. So you can see that actually you can still get water from the fountain, which is pretty cool. I mean, I've seen quite a few times like kids coming and filling up buckets of water. It's amazing, like you've got all these beautiful like mosaics as well. This is from like the 10th, I think, or 11th century, so pretty amazing that it's completely intact. Very beautiful designs. This is the hammam, Ait Ben Haddou. So another thing that's very characteristic of the Medina, and in every quarter of the Medina you'll always find a hammam. So you have, I think, men's and women's, they're obviously separate, and usually they come here maybe once every week, once every 10 days, and it's kind of like a sauna, like a steam bath. So this one in this neighborhood, and you can see, like, again, very beautiful tiles, just very old hammam as well, because this is a very old neighborhood. This is the local mosque of this neighborhood, the Ait Ben Haddou Mosque, which is very, very beautiful, and you've also got the school as well. So these are 2 things that you find in every quarter of a Medina. Just like wandering around the streets of the Medina and getting lost, but there are so many places where you just have like the most beautiful details, so you can see like the arches and the colours, and you've got like people's homes here, and some of the doors, when they're slightly ajar, you can see the tiles with the typical Moroccan mosaics. And you know, if you wander around the Medina, get lost, you'll really kind of come across some really beautiful places. You have mint? This smells so good. It's one bag is okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Shukran. Got lots of fresh mints now. Fresh herbs. Smell absolutely delicious. Yeah, this is amazing. This is
you can mix it that in the other
fresh
ones.
mint for the tea,
Yeah,
for the mint
good
tea.
Good for all the body.
It smells incredible. Shukran. Lots of these stalls selling local bread. So bread is a huge, huge thing in Marrakesh, well, in the whole of Morocco. This one, I think I'm gonna, this one, 3 dirhams.
This is have some onion with spices.
What's it called, the name?
Mizmin in Arabic. In Arabic, mizmin.
Mizmin. Great, okay. So this is the local market here, and you can see they've just got so much fresh food, fresh vegetables, like it's amazing how much stuff they've got. Huge oranges, bananas, avocados. This market is pretty crazy. It's the Bab Zoukala market, which is a local quarter. There's so much like fresh fruit, strawberries, salam alaikum, apples, like oh my gosh, it's incredible. Like the orange juice is quite famous here in Morocco because the oranges are very fresh, and you can just see they're everywhere. They're just amazing. People just doing their shopping, their local shopping. So this is one of several monuments here in Marrakesh, in the Medina, which I think if you visit them, you get a really good idea of how historic Marrakesh is. The city's around 1,000 years old, and this is one of the palaces which is now in ruins, the Badi Palace. Badi means the incomparable. It was commissioned to be built by the then ruler, the Sultan Al-Mansur. He was from the Saadian dynasty, so Morocco has a history of different dynasties that would rule the country, and the Saadian dynasties were one of the dynasties that ruled for a long time. So he commissioned the palace to be built in the 16th century. You can imagine in the times that it was a functioning palace. He built it from the most luxurious materials, gold, ivory, turquoise. So it was a very lavish palace. Absolutely stunning. I mean, the palace is in ruins now. Unfortunately, once the Sultan passed away, the next ruling dynasty basically stripped this whole palace of all the materials, all the gold, all the ivory, and they moved all that material to the other capital of Morocco, which was Meknes. So it's really been left in ruins, but you can really see like how vast, how grand this place is, and imagine what it would have been like when it was a beautiful, functioning palace. Wow, it's amazing. You can still see the detailing on the steps made of this beautiful tile work in this gorgeous turquoise colour. It's incredible that it's still preserved so well. Sultan Ahmed Al-Mansur was just as extravagant in death as he was in life. After he built Badi Palace in the 16th century, he transformed a nearby necropolis into a lavish tomb complex, where his own impressive tomb resides, along with those he held in great esteem, including family members, princes, and some Jewish dignitaries. The Saadian tombs showcase the incredible skills of master artisans, who used materials including imported Italian marble and gold, intricate tile work known as zalige, plasterwork and woodwork to construct this beautiful complex. It's a site which radiates with beauty. Yafa is a local Marrakchi who was born and brought up in Marrakesh, and knows the local spots in the old Medina where you can witness authentic daily life. Wow!
Weaving. He's making the towels like this. He's making by hand.
It's all like cotton?
Cotton. Yeah.
Cotton, yeah.
This is a towel for the hammam.
For the hammam. Yeah. And it's all doing it by hand?
Everything by hand, yeah.
Wow. So this is like a really kind of traditional way.
Yeah, this is a very traditional way. Look at his foot. 1 foot here, 1 foot there.
Oh, the foot. How long has he been doing this for?
شحال هادي باش دخلت بعد خدمة. When he was 12.
Since he was 12 years old. So that is literally what he's been doing pretty much all his life.
Yeah. Okay. شكرا الله يعاونك.
Thank you, shukran. Wow.
This used to be a hotel in the past time. It's Caravan Serai. Hotel for caravans.
Hotel for
Caravan
caravans.
Serai, yeah.
Was this like a caravan trade route that would come to Marrakesh?
Come to Marrakesh.
Where were they coming from? Were they coming from
come
the
to
desert?
sell and come to buy from the Sahara.
From the Sahara.
From the mountains of Morocco too.
Okay.
And they bring animal skins.
Animal skins?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they bring them.
Yeah.
And you sell them here.
Okay, so this is like the kind of
And
place.
from here they buy, for example, slippers, bags from leather. They buy jalabas, and you take them back to the Sahara.
Back to the Sahara.
So they sell, they buy, and they go to sell.
It's like a trading.
This is the caravan trade. That's how it was.
Caravan trade, and it was camels, right?
Camels at the time, but now no more caravan trade. So this place was given to artisans.
To artisans.
That's what you see now. A lot of artisans all over the place.
Okay.
Making like this one is making bags, making belts. We're going to see the bakery now.
Ah.
There you are.
Salam alaikum.
This is one of the oldest public ovens in Marrakesh. So the people, they make the dough at home and they bring it to him to bake, like this bread. This belongs to a family in this quarter. Also this pastry.
How does he know like what bread is for what family?
كيفاش تعرف بأنه هذا خبز ديال هذيك العائلة؟
You remember? So he remembers them and whose bread is whose bread. Oh, this is it.
It's for you.
Oh, wow. That's a hob. Shukran.
Khobz, that's barley bread.
The hob.
Khobz.
Hobs. I hope he's not giving me one of his family's bread.
No. This is meant for the public actually. Because these small ones, he baked them to sell to the public.
And people come to buy, the public come to buy.
Like the lady we saw outside, she's selling this bread.
Oh, she's selling it. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
This is a cake from corn cake. Yeah, corn cake.
Wow. Every single quarter in the Medina, Yafa is telling me, always has a mosque, a bakery, and a hammam.
Yeah.
That's what you'll find in every quarter of a Medina.
So this is the place where the water is heated for the hammam.
Oh, okay.
The hammams, the touristic hammams, they do the gas.
Yeah.
To heat the room. The public hammams, they need fire next to the hammam.
So the proper public hammam used by Marrakech, you heat it with wood fire.
Yeah. See how many tangiers over there? This is where they cook the tangier. So when we say tangier, it's always associated with the city of Marrakesh. You can make it in other cities, but they call it always tangier Marrakechia.
Tangier Marrakechia.
Because it is Marrakesh where the tangier started in the first place. Inside you put meat,
Yes, yeah.
garlic, olive oil, preserved lemon, preserved butter, and saffron.
And what's
And this
that?
is the preserved lemon. Taste it.
Preserved lemon. Woo!
Yeah. Surprised by the taste, huh? This one takes 1 year to preserve.
Very salty.
This is what gives the taste to the tangier. It's more than that, he is a musician.
Yeah, yeah.
He plays Gnawa music.
Marrakesh is an ancient city which has acted as a hub of trade and commerce for nearly 1,000 years. One of the most fascinating aspects of the city's rich and diverse history is its relationship with the arts and crafts. From leather, textiles and especially metal, craftsmen to this day use the skills that have been passed down generation through generation in the various trades. And some artisans have had their family workshops in the Medina for over 100 years. So this is the traditional dish here in Marrakesh, which is the tangier, which I really want to try. It looks incredibly tasty and it's cooked in a very distinctive pot which shares the same name. And it's beef?
Yes, beef.
Beef, yes.
Beef.
Very and delicious. Yes, yes. I'm going to taste a little bit and see what it's like.
Welcome to Marrakesh.
Thank you, shukran.
Welcome.
To taste a little bit. That's so incredibly tender and the taste is so good, yeah. Wow. Ooh. So this is the pot, which is called the tangier. Wow. Oh. Ooh, looks so good. Thank you. Looks absolutely delicious. So they cook the meat. Usually it's either lamb or beef, but you could also have chicken as well. And they'll add spices to it, a few spices like cumin and paprika, and then they'll slow cook it for 3 hours. They'll put it in this pot, which is the tangier pot, and then they'll take it somewhere where you can put it traditionally in hot ash and then cook it for around 3-4 hours, and then it becomes like this, very tender meat. They always serve this bread with the dish, and it's called khobz bread, so you can mop up the juices. The meat literally melts in your mouth. It's so tender, so flavoursome. Another age-old tradition synonymous with Marrakesh is the art of storytelling, which is thought to date back to the 11th century. Stories of ancient myths, legends and folktales would often be verbally told to crowds, and Café Clock in the Old Medina is one of the last remaining places trying to keep this ancient art alive.
What is storytelling? everything in our lives is a story, and everybody is a storyteller. The storytelling aspect in Morocco is one of the fundamental pillars of the whole culture. If you go and ask about storytellers in Morocco, they're like the documenters of history, of the Moroccan history. Because what is the best way to deliver a message? To have fun with it. You're going to be hearing a story from His Majesty the King, and of course I'm going to be providing a translated version of the story.
واحد المدة من زمان واحد النهار ضربوا فيه الوزارة ديالو قالوا لي يا سلطان بديتي محزين خص شي حاجة اللي تونسك وتضحكك كيفاش نعطيك نص يلا عاد الكرا بغيت نذبحها قالت له لا وليدي كتعطينا السمن كتعطينا الحليب قال لها ما باقي حملت نشوفها ما حملتي تشوفيها ايوا ديها بيعها وشري وحده اخرى.
I won't say they lived happily ever after because happiness is relevant, but they lived moderately happily ever after, you know? And that's the end of my story. Thank you so much. I really wish if I could.
Well, I just wanted to know, like, how old is the tradition of storytelling?
في المغرب تربينا بها ما كايناش شي دار في المغرب ما كان.
The tradition of storytelling in Morocco started with the creation of the country. That's like 1,200 years ago.
Wow.
Because Morocco, apart from the United Kingdom, Morocco is currently the second oldest ongoing active kingdom that have ever lived on the face of the earth. The storytelling, we grew up with it. It's in our blood, it's in our roots, in our culture. We tell stories about, how the boogeyman would get you in the streets. We tell stories to teach. We tell stories to entertain. If you say storytelling is one of the components of the Moroccan life, that the true Moroccan life, you would find storytelling inverted into it.
Located on the southern slopes of the high Atlas Mountains is the Road of 1,000 Kasbahs. Kasbahs are ancient fortresses that were occupied by wealthy leaders, and these stunning monuments help to tell the story of Morocco's rich and diverse history. Behind me is a Kasbah Telouet, and this is the first Kasbah along the way that we're going to go and have a look around. Kasbah Telouet has a very interesting history to it, so I want to go and have a look at and see what it's like. You can see that in its former days, this Kasbah must have been absolutely stunning. Just love the colour. It's all like a red brick, which is very typical, characteristic of Marrakesh and the Kasbahs. The family that was presiding over this Kasbah was the El Glaoui family, a very, very wealthy family, and the head of the family, the Pasha, was called Thami El Glaoui. He was a very, very powerful man. He had a lot of political and cultural and economic influence in Morocco, and he was a Pasha of Marrakesh. In 1912, Morocco became a French protectorate, and Thami El Glaoui became very close with the French colonialists, so in the end he ended up betraying the king, the Sultan at the time, Mohammed V, and he helped the French colonialists exile Mohammed V because the Sultan had become very intent on gaining Moroccan independence and gaining independence from the French. But then in 1955, Mohammed came back from France and he declared Morocco independent. But unfortunately, Sami el-Glawi died 2 years later, and to this day, the government here in Morocco hasn't really made an effort to restore it because of the nature of the betrayal that the Glawi family bestowed upon King Mohammed V. This room is really well maintained, so you can still see beautiful tile work, very typical Moroccan tile mosaic work called zellige here. It's very colourful, comes from Fez, and you probably had hundreds of Moroccan craftsmen that designed this beautiful room. It's probably where the family held lavish parties and invited very important people because they're very wealthy, very influential, and it's said that they held kind of very ostentatious parties here, and you can really see that this incredible room is made to impress guests. Behind me you have one of the most famous Kasbahs here in Morocco, which is the Kasbah Ait Ben Haddou. And this Kasbah is actually a World Heritage UNESCO site. It was built in the 17th century, and it's very famous and well known here in Morocco because a lot of international films like The Gladiator were filmed in Ait Ben Haddou. And it's a great example of the traditional mud brick Kasbahs that were built a few centuries ago here in Morocco. This Kasbah is called Kasbah Amradil, and it was built in the 17th century by a very wealthy Arabic family. They had huge plots of land, so they had a lot of income coming in from agriculture and cattle, and so they built this beautiful Kasbah. And it's also very famous because the King of Morocco chose this Kasbah to be the one on the banknotes, the old Moroccan dirham banknotes. Kasbahs are fortresses, and typically a wealthy family would live in one, along with their servants and soldiers. They're very grand, so it's hard to believe that it was just for one family. So I'm in the bit which is called the courtyard, so the riad, and this is very traditional, the way that they had the houses in the olden days in Morocco would be a riad style, so you'd always have a central courtyard with a fountain in the middle, and that would be very much like the centerpiece of the home. And if you stay in the riads in Marrakesh, then you'll see that they all have that central feature, which is the courtyard. They're all defined by a courtyard and a fountain in the middle, and fruit trees that are growing. Well, so as soon as I walk in here, I can really feel like how cool it is. Like the air is much cooler inside. That's one of the reasons why they built these homes using the clay because it kept the heat in when it was cold, but then when it was hot, it was also very good at cooling down the home, and so you can really feel when you come inside, it's cooler. So this is what would have been the prayer room, and there are 5 windows facing towards the direction of Mecca. So those 5 windows represent the 5 pillars of Islam. So the 5 pillars of Islam are: you believe in the Prophet Muhammad and Allah, you pray 5 times a day, you fast during the holy month of Ramadan, you give money to the poor, and you go to Mecca at least once in your life for the pilgrimage. Even though this Kasbah is very old, it was originally built in the 17th century, the families still do restoration work, especially because when there are heavy rains, the mud disintegrates. So the last time they restored this Kasbah was around 10 years ago, and when you look around and you see, especially on the rooftops, the detailing, they've used exactly the same materials that they used when they first built it, which is the mud clay, so very much preserves the original structure of this beautiful building. Marrakesh is the most visited city in Morocco, and I was apprehensive about being able to find authentic local life easily. But there's a whole other side to the Medina which I've thoroughly enjoyed exploring, and I've come away with a real appreciation of the rich Moroccan heritage which is so ingrained in the social fabric of this bustling metropolis.
حربا